What is QHHT? QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. It is a form of hypnotherapy that was invented by Dolores Cannon, who I'll get into in a moment, and it accesses the subconscious, but a different form of the subconscious. It's actually sort of the superconscious for healing. So I've got some notes here, so whenever you see me looking to the side, it's just because I've got a lot to cover in this video. So the purpose of QHHT is essentially to access this all-knowing part of us, because this part holds the answers and the healing that we're looking for. So using QHHT is a way to directly target this part so that we can connect with it in a very clear, direct way. Dolores Cannon called this part the subconscious, or otherwise known as the SC. So who was Dolores Cannon? She was an early day pioneer in the hypnotherapy space. She has a really interesting story, and she's no longer with us. And I'm going to go over her origin story here, which I've got in front of me. So Dolores Cannon started her journey back in the 1960s. She actually had a husband at the time who was a hypnotist in the military. And she used to sit in with him on his sessions, and they would go through and work with people. And typically this would be for quitting smoking, things like this, or maybe different trauma or different things that people would be working on in the military. But during one of her sessions, or one of her husband's sessions that she was sitting in on, the client ended up going to past lives. And this was all documented in her book, 5 Lives Remembered. So she talks about this, and this woman ended up going to these different lives, and it just fascinated them. Interestingly enough, around the world at this time, other hypnotherapists and hypnotists were experiencing the same thing. So this was coming through from a lot of different clients around this time, and Dolores Cannon happened to be one of these few hypnotherapists and hypnotists who were experiencing this firsthand. And this fascinated her. Her husband wasn't as fascinated with it, but it really, really fascinated her. And her husband would end up going on to get injured and end up leaving the military and not doing hypnosis anymore. But Dolores Cannon stuck with it and continued to see clients, and she was raising a family of her own, so she took a break to raise her family, but then she came back later on and was just really curious, really fascinated, and ended up evolving the hypnotherapy into past life regression, and the past life regression into QHHT, or Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, as it's known now. And since she started this technique, she's continued to expand and develop it throughout the rest of her life until she passed, to create it into what it is today. In the later years, she ended up creating a training program and a school to actually teach this to others. And that's what I learned myself as well. So she's got this whole process documented. She's got her original technique, and she has a very strict and rigid formula for how to do this that QHHT practitioners, hypnotherapists and hypnotists that want to call themselves practitioners of QHHT, have to follow very strictly, because she lays out a very direct formula for how to make this process work. A little bit more about Dolores Cannon is she went on to write a lot of books. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with books such as The Convoluted Universe, The 3 Waves of Volunteers, and The New Earth. And she's got a lot of other books, I believe 19 or more, where she documents her sessions and she compiles them into stories or into themes. Some of these themes have to do with ETs. Other of these themes, such as in the Convoluted Universe book, have to do with different metaphysical concepts. Some have to do with different time periods, and some have to do with events like Hiroshima. So she does a really good job of exploring with these clients and putting all of these stories and all of these experiences into her books that she then would go on and promote, and they would do really, really well, and that was actually what helps her become very popular. So what QHHT means by the subconscious. So this isn't what we normally think of when we think of the subconscious, meaning that when we usually think of the subconscious, we're thinking of this storehouse of information. Well, what Dolores Cannon's actually talking about is what she calls the SC. So this is the superconscious, really, which is something that we're connected to, that is all-knowing, that we can directly connect with and interact with. Some people may call it our higher self. Some people may call it our soul or our oversoul. Dolores Cannon used to refer to it as they, because she recognized that this is a group. And you could call this spirit guides as well. You could call this our council of light. But essentially, what she had figured out was that there was a group of beings that we are all connected to that we could say are our guides, but it consists of a lot of different parts of us that are all connected and all helping us through this journey that we call life. And so she was really good at connecting with them. And back in her time, she used to be able to connect with them very directly. So in a sense, the client would go under or go out, and they would kind of step aside, and the client's higher self, the client's SC, as she would call it, would step in, and they would be connecting directly. And so if the client had any questions, for example, what is my purpose? Why did this happen to me? Can you tell me more about this relationship? What does this person mean to me in my life? This, maybe my mom, my dad, have I known them in past lives? These types of questions. And she would ask these questions, and the client's higher self, or SC in this case, would be answering the questions directly. And speaking from experience as a practitioner myself, I've also witnessed and experienced this as well. And I remember the first time that this ever happened, I was completely blown away. I had never actually experienced anything like that before, and it was truly as if I was connecting directly with God or directly with a divine entity. And it was extremely powerful. And I've gone on to have a number of these types of sessions, and every single time that it happens, which isn't super frequent, which I'll talk about later, but it always blows me away because I'm directly connecting with something that's not of this world, but that is really invested in the client's success and healing and happiness. Although sometimes I have actually noticed that the SC, or the higher self, can be very direct, and sometimes it can be very stern. I've had clients' subconscious or higher self give them a very stern talking to, and even I was like, whoa, okay. But it's also, generally very loving and very kind, very protective. So whenever this happens, it's a beautiful, powerful experience. And Dolores Cannon was really proficient in making this happen. And also there's something to be said around her time that she was alive, and back in her heyday, later on in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, this was a lot more common. But around 2012, there was this shift, as we remember, with the Mayan calendar and a lot of these types of things. Well, there was actually an upgrade that happened on the Earth, and she actually realized that previously it was something like, I want to say maybe 80-20. 80% of her clients would actually be going into this deep, deep trance state, and 20% of her clients wouldn't. Well, it actually flipped. Around that time, it started to go the other way, where 80% of her clients were not going into a deep, deep state of trance, and 20% were. And I've observed, as I've started and talking to other practitioners, being in chat rooms and message boards with other practitioners, that this is the case for most of us, if not all of us, that we realize that the way that the earth is shifting and how we're all becoming more conscious now, it's more rare to have the clients going into this deep, deep state, at least quickly. to be able to connect on that level. Now, it is possible, and it does happen quite frequently, especially in my practice. I see this happen all the time, to where as a client gets more comfortable and feels more safe, so as you potentially considering doing QHHT, feel comfortable, feel safe with the process, you actually allow yourself to get to that place with your conscious mind involvement. So we don't really have a whole lot of sessions these days, or a whole lot of experience where our conscious mind is completely going out. These days, our conscious mind is a participant in the process, meaning that we're actually present. We're not going out, we're not going under the same way that you might think of it. We are actually staying aware and present during the process, and it is very permissive, and we remain engaged the whole time. So if you're worried about losing control, if you're worried about going out or this feeling weird, you have nothing to worry about. That happens very, very rarely. And when it does happen, it's always that it is something that the client is comfortable with. And so it is something that really goes at your own pace, and it sort of stair steps down. Sometimes I use the analogy of getting into a pool. So where we want to go is the deep end, because that's where all the magic happens, whenever we can get into this deep, deep level of trance, your deep subconscious. But the way that this works is that you just gradually take a step further, take a step further, take a step further until you notice that you're in the deep end. It's not something that just takes you straight to the deep end without your active involvement or permission. And if you can give it that, well then wonderful. But most of us have a hard time with that, and that's completely fine, because also I found that most of us want to be in control. Most of us don't want to feel like we're losing control. Most of us don't want to feel unsafe with the process like this. So we don't have to experience that. We can experience it going at our own pace, but it's very important just to trust the process. I'm going to get into this later, and just know that the process is working, although sometimes it just may take more time for you to get deep enough to where you want to go. I would say that's the number one thing I hear from clients, is that I didn't get as deep as I wanted to go as soon as I wanted to get there, but you recognize that you get a lot deeper with time. And if you were to do multiple sessions, you would continue to get deeper and continue to get deeper. A lot of us do get really deep in the first session that we do, but some of us don't. And if you happen to be watching and have happened to do a QHHT session and you didn't get as deep as you wanted to go, or you thought that you were making it up, or you weren't sure about things, then that is most likely what happened. And sometimes that can be on the practitioner as well. Sometimes the practitioner may not be able to effectively guide you into that state or set the proper expectations. But really all it comes down to is just feeling safe, feeling comfortable with the process, feeling comfortable and safe with the practitioner, feeling comfortable and safe in the practitioner's space. And when all these things are aligned, then you can be sure you're going to have a great experience. So continuing to move forward, and again, I'm just looking at my notes. I just want to make sure I cover everything, because I've got an outline here and I don't want to do any edits in this video. So the key points is that the subconscious is a source of infinite knowledge, and it can lead to profound healing when really engaged with. Because this part of us, I like to say, is this part that's already healed. It's already whole. So if this is us and this is this part of us, what's happening in this process is we're connecting with it, and we're integrating it, and we're becoming that. We're incorporating more of that energy into our system. So just by nature of connecting with this energy, we are letting go of things. Think of this gap that we're closing. Anxiety is in the gap. Fear is in the gap. The habits, triggers, all that is in the gap. So as we connect with this energy, those things just can't exist. I mean, think about it. This lower form of energy, these anxiety, these dense energy forms that we work with, these negative emotions, they don't exist in the higher planes. So whenever we connect with these higher planes, whenever we connect with this higher level of energy, this higher frequency, those things just go away. They just can't even stay there. And so what that means for us is really good. It means that as we go through this process has a very healing effect. Just by us connecting with our higher self is actually healing, because it's reconnecting us with our true self. It's connecting us with who we truly are, beyond all the noise, beyond the fears, beyond the sadness, beyond the anger, beyond all this stuff that is truly not us. There is this beautiful, powerful being that's existing there, that is ready to be seen, that's ready to be expressed and felt and received by you, received by the world, and just put out there in a fun, joyful, playful, childlike wonder and awe way. And so whenever we are connecting with this, we're just, by way of the process, releasing everything that is not us. It's a really, really beautiful process. So how is QHHT different from regular hypnosis? Or how is it different from past life regression? How is it different from any other form of hypnotherapy? Well, traditional forms of hypnotherapy are about generally suggestions, and this is kind of what you've heard about in the past. The old school hypnotherapy, the old school hypnosis was all about suggestions, and still is. If you go to clinical hypnotherapy practitioners, or look for different doctors or therapists that perform traditional hypnotherapy, this is most likely what you're going to get. You're going to get doctors and practitioners who are very much steeped in this form of hypnotherapy that is really about suggestion, meaning that if you go in there for something, okay, I want to work on this habit or trigger, or I want to let this thing go, then there's going to be a lot of suggestions that you can do this, that you will do this. My issue with this is that this is what gives hypnosis a feeling or a thought that it may work for me or it may not. So there's a real common wonder in this space of, will it work for me? Is this something that's going to work for me? And so because of that, it makes sense that the only way, or the only reason that we would be thinking about it this way, is if it does work for some people and it doesn't work for others. And traditional hypnosis has created more of that idea, because it kind of has made it seem more like a parlor trick based on some of the entertainment material that's out there, that either works for someone, either somebody goes under and they get the result and they stop doing the thing, or it doesn't. And the reality with this, and with more holistic forms of hypnotherapy, is that it works for everyone. It really works, because all hypnosis is you using hypnosis as a tool to access altered brainwave states, and everyone can access an altered brainwave state, because we do it every single day and every single night when we go to sleep. So everyone can do it, and it's just a matter of being able to stay in that space, being able to work in that space. And I call it just a fast lane to doing inner work. So it works for everyone. In my experience, it absolutely works for everyone. There's not a single client that I work with who it doesn't work for. It's just that sometimes our expectations of it working are specific. That may mean, okay, I'm expecting it to work, meaning I'm expecting it to make my smoking completely go away. This is just a traditional example, in one session. And if it doesn't do that, then it didn't work. Or in the case of QHHT, it may be, I'm expecting to be in such a deep level of trance that I'm going to connect so deeply with my subconscious or with my higher self, get clear answers, and know for a fact what the answer to this is. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't work. And I am always working to get my clients out of this mindset, because there's so many layers to this and so many factors that will affect how deep you are able to go and how clear the answers will come to you, because that really does depend on your level of trance. And the level of trance I'll get into in the future, maybe later in this video, but certainly in another video. This is the number one thing that a lot of people are not too familiar with, how to get there, what are the factors that have to do with. And this has to do with so many things, including your life, your upbringing, in addition to the practitioner themselves. And all of these things go into the formula on if this is going to work on that level for you. But if you have zero expectations, if you can go in with an open mind then you can be sure that you will get something out of the process and it will work for you. And I always do my best to keep my clients in a mindset of potentially doing multiple sessions as well, because I've worked with clients. My MO generally is to work and do multiple sessions, is to do 3 sessions, 4 sessions. I've worked with clients doing 6 sessions and more, and I've even worked with clients doing upward of 10 and more sessions. And I've noticed that it goes deeper and further every single time, and it gets more powerful every single time. So just because you may not get that breakthrough that you want in one session doesn't mean that you might not get there the next one. So I say all this just because this classic question, will it work for me? Yes, it will. And so I digress a little bit, but that's the difference from regular hypnosis, is that regular hypnosis is more about suggestion, and QHHT is more about connecting directly with your subconscious. Now, how is it different from past life regression? Well, past life regression, QHHT actually utilizes past life regression, but it goes beyond past life regression. So past life regression, typically, what you're doing is you're just going to a past life, for example. And you don't have to believe in past lives. You could just think of it as a metaphor or a story or an illustration that your subconscious or your higher self is coming up with to show you something. So you don't have to actually believe this for this process to work for you. And sometimes it can look different. Sometimes for some of us, we may be really deep. We may be experiencing what may seem like a past life or truly feel like a past life, and we're feeling it. We're seeing everything. We're feeling all the emotions. We're really in that body. And when we have an experience like that, I mean, it's going to challenge us. It's really going to make us be like, whoa, that is really interesting. I mean, for any of you who have had a dream where you've been a different person or these have felt very real to you, it's like that. In other cases, it may just be something that you feel like you're just making up in your mind or you're just coming up with, or you may see it as images, or you may see kind of it like a movie, but you may not feel as connected to it. So these are all possibilities as well when we talk about past life regression or us interfacing with our subconscious or our higher self that's showing us different scenes. And oftentimes it doesn't even really matter if this is real or not, because it still is irrelevant. It's still connecting to what we're experiencing now, and it's still holding valuable messages and helping us release emotions and showing us different things clearly to give us clarity or healing or a deeper understanding of ourselves in certain ways. The only difference with QHHT is that past life regression is actually a means to an end in QHHT. Past life regression is the vehicle to get us to in this deep trance state to connect with our subconscious. And Dolores Cannon was all about just getting to the subconscious because she knew that that's what the client was really seeking. We're really seeking these answers. We're really seeking this clarity. And if you're just in the past life regression, that's great. But if you don't get the clarity, if you don't get the answers, then you may not feel like you got as much as you can. So in her later years, she was all about just being like, we're just using this to go straight to the subconscious, straight to the higher self, because we want to get this clarity. And that's generally why she structured the sessions in the way that she did, which I'll get to in a moment. It's also important to acknowledge that there is also quantum hypnosis or quantum hypnotherapy or quantum healing hypnosis that doesn't have the T, it doesn't have the technique. And what this is oftentimes it's online, or it's the own practitioner or hypnotherapist way of adapting the technique or using a quantum version of hypnotherapy that isn't QHHT. So I do this myself where I practice online, I do online sessions, but I don't necessarily call them QHHT because QHHT by Dolores Cannon is only to be performed online. And there's some discussion around whether people agree with that or not, or whether people believe if Dolores Cannon was still alive today, would she still agree with that? And there's two different camps. There is the camp of the purists who say that this is what she said and she passed away after she said this, and so we're going to stick to it. And then there's the camp who believes Dolores Cannon was an innovator and she would have always been pushing that envelope forward. And because she was so ahead of her time, it's more likely that she would be open to the online sessions, because back in her day, there was just Skype and things like that. And depending on what camp you're on is the side you're going to lean on. And I'm not here to say which side is correct or which side is right or wrong. I'm just pointing out that traditionally QHHT, as it stands right now, as of making this video, is only to be performed online, or only to be performed in person. And so anything that is to be performed online would be called quantum hypnosis, or there's another modality called BQH, where the creator of it has developed a curriculum about different best practices for how to take something like this online. The top 5 reasons people seek a QHHT session. So generally speaking, the number one thing is finding life purpose, finding your mission, understanding your soul's journey, your soul's path, understanding what it is that you're here to do. This is the most common thing that I see, is those of us who have a deep feeling that we could be more connected, that there's something that we should be doing, that there's something here for us, but we just feel cut off from it. We just feel like there's something that is blocking us or keeping us stuck or holding us back from connecting with that. That, from my experience, is the number one reason. And this is very effective at actually connecting, because from my experience, if you feel stuck, if you feel blocked, it's because you are, which makes logical sense, because if you weren't, you wouldn't feel that way. So if you do feel stuck and blocked, it is because you are. But what does stuck and blocked even mean? Well, what I've learned in my personal practice is that it really means emotionally stuck and blocked, meaning that there's certain unresolved emotions that you have in your system. There's certain emotions that you haven't moved through: anger, sadness, guilt, shame, powerlessness, grief. All of these things we hold on to because we want to protect ourselves and because we don't want to be hurt. And so, in a number of reasons, but we hold on to these, and these are denser emotions that keep us cut off from our higher self, from our soul, from our oversoul, from our SC. And because of that, we feel cut off from it. And so that's why oftentimes when we go through a session or we do this work, what actually happens is that we move through those emotions and we can get to the other side, we can get unblocked. And honestly, what I see is that it is very important to get unblocked, but what's more important is actually to create a lifestyle, to change those, to make those lifestyle changes in your life to where you don't need these sessions, you don't need to seek anything outside of yourself to actually have that connection. Now, this, in my opinion, is some of the best work that you could possibly do for yourself, and why I love this work so much, and I'm sure a lot of other practitioners love it a lot, is because it's still connecting you with yourself. It's still not me as a practitioner or the practitioner is telling you something. It's them holding you in a space and guiding you so that you can get those answers for yourself. That's why it is very empowering, because you are the one that's telling yourself this. You are the one that's really doing the work with the practitioner here as your guide and as a helper for you and a space holder. But still, if you're still reliant on someone else, then it may still not feel as good for you as if you're actually moving through your own process in such a way to get unstuck on your own. So that's a big area of focus that I focus on in my practice, is actually helping my clients understand more deeply what they can be doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis to strengthen that connection with themselves in their own way. Because I have found all of us are different, and some of us have different ways that specifically work for us that may not work as well for someone else, if that makes sense. Other things, relationships. So we want to understand, why is this happening? Maybe you might have gone through a breakup or a divorce, or you may be struggling with family members or friends or parents or children, and there's some difficult relationships there, or there's some things happening that you may not be sure why. Maybe they could be karmic. Maybe there's a deeper reason happening. and we want to understand the true meaning of this, or our connections to our loved ones, or have we had past lives potentially with these people in our life? And if so, what does the nature of that look like? And this can give us that clarity. We can get that clarity in two ways in a session, I've found. The first way is actually by going through the journey, because in the actual journey, whether it's a past life or whether it's something else, you can actually be shown the nature of your relationships. You can directly understand in this journey what those relationships are like. And then number two is by actually connecting with your SC, by actually connecting with your higher self. You can ask those questions directly. And in this case, it is a little more dependent on your level of trance, because the deeper in trance you go, you'll get the answers more clearly. You could think of your conscious mind as a filter. If your conscious mind is more present, you may be a little more doubtful of the answers that you're getting. But generally in my own practice, I find that 8 or 9 times out of 10, most of us are getting to the point where we can get enough clarity to feel confident about what we're receiving. Even if there's a little bit of doubt around it, we still have a feeling that this is the answer that we're receiving. The next thing, physical healing. Now this is a tricky one. A lot of us want to heal on a physical level, but I have found this can be the most difficult. And while it's not that it doesn't happen, I have had this happen in sessions, it's a little more rare from my personal experience. And the reason for that, from my personal understanding and experience, is that these experiences and these emotions and all these things that are causing the physical ailments or issues have been in our energy fields for a very, very long time. Maybe not even only in this experience, but it may be generational in nature. Maybe it's karmic. Maybe it's connected to past lives, or anything that you want to believe, but maybe this is something that's bigger than just you. So it's something that has been existing for a very long time, and it took a while for it to manifest from these other levels and planes down into the physical. So that can be a tall order to go in and hope in one session that you're going to heal a physical thing that you've been suffering with for a lifetime and potentially generations of your family has been suffering with. But it's more likely that you may be able to get more clarity when it comes to that and be given direct instructions on how to begin to get rid of that. Now, again, I'm never going to be someone who won't say that anything is possible, because I've literally seen with my own eyes in sessions how certain things can be cleared up in one session. I just find that it is a little more rare, and it's more likely that you're actually going to be empowered to understand the root cause, what are the things that contribute to it, and what not to do, or what to do to overcome it. And my belief in understanding and perception around that is because these days I believe our higher self and our souls and our team, they want to empower us, but they want us to do the work. They don't actually want to take that from us, because we actually signed up to do this work. And so if you have had a session where you've had some miraculous healing, consider yourself very fortunate and consider yourself very blessed, because it is a little rare. And it's amazing even when I've seen it happen, and some of my clients are very blessed to have this happen for them. Some other things are unexplained experiences. If you've ever had paranormal experiences, ET type experiences, anything that you're just not sure about in the past when you were growing up, there's been some weird situations that have happened, mystical experiences that you've forgotten, or anything like that. These are very common, that we can then go and actually unpack these and explore what really did happen at that time, because hypnosis and hypnotherapy in general is a really great way of accessing these memories that we may have blocked out, or that we may remember something about, but that isn't in our conscious mind fully. So yeah, anything like this is very common that we can go and explore, and we can really get to the bottom of it. I have found that sometimes clients aren't fully ready to receive everything, and sometimes it comes out in sort of breadcrumbs. Like, let's say, for example, you've had some sort of paranormal or mystical experience, but you may feel a little bit of fear around it. And so there may be some hesitation around completely unpacking it, but just know that you're never going to get more than what you can handle. And I do find that it is more often than in these situations that it does get dripped out to you like breadcrumbs. So it may not be that you're going to get everything in one session, but you may start to get pieces of it. And then if you keep coming back, if you keep going further, you can get the whole thing. So I just want to say that because I want to give everyone watching, if you have had that type of experience or if you are nervous, some reassurance just to know that you can still have a session and get something out of it and get more pieces of the puzzle and feel more comfortable and safe with this process rather than it being something that you get really nervous and scared about. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're feeling good and that you're feeling ready to really dive into this. The last thing really is just the big questions that we have. Any of the big questions that you have about your soul's journey, about life purpose, as I mentioned, but even more than that, just anything. I mean, some of these classic categories are finances, love, relationships, career, purpose, but anything that you want to know, any questions that you have, health, anything that's going on health-wise. For me in my practice, I tend to work with a lot of these stuck and blocked patterns, this anxiety, these fears. That's probably the number one thing that I work with actually is fear, that I end up working with a lot of guilt and shame underneath this. Ultimately, these energies that are cutting us off from our true self so that we can then step into more of our power. We can step into more of what we're here to do. So I work less with more curiosity and more with actually real results oriented focus. So if there really are things that you're wanting to work on that are cutting you off from already knowing your purpose, from already feeling connected to your soul, that's what I'm focused on. Because not only do I want you to get those answers and feel that healing and feel that clarity, but I want this to stick. I want this to be something that you don't have the blocks, that they don't come back, and that this is something that you can integrate into your daily life to keep this up. So that's my mindset, as I'm very, very results oriented. And that's another reason why I tend to work with clients over a longer time horizon than just one. So preparation, your role in the process. So how do you prepare for a QHHT session? And this is very important because, of course, you want to show up and you want to be the most prepared you could possibly be. So number one, the most important thing is your mindset, is coming in with zero expectations. And I know this is tricky because I know we have a lot of expectations on what we want to receive and by a certain time. But honestly, a lot of this comes from the conscious mind, which is this part that is, really rigid and really kind of creating a lot of problems for us and creating a lot of suffering because it is hypercritical, hyper analytical. It is very judgmental, and it can be very hard on us. And we can even be punishing ourselves in certain ways, or we could be cutting ourselves off from ourselves. So it's very easy for us to be projecting that on the session and have these really almost unrealistic expectations of what we want to accomplish by what time. And I found this to be, sadly, the number one thing that can disrupt a session is these expectations. So my number one job in my mind, before you come in for your session, is to help you get to a place where you have zero expectations, because I find that to be the sweet spot. There is a sense of being intentional around the process, knowing what you're intending, but also being open to anything and being in this state of just wonder and awe and openness and softness around the process that really allows this to unfold in a beautiful and powerful way. So on top of this, or I should say hand in hand with this, is this idea of trusting the process, trusting yourself, trusting your practitioner, just knowing that whoever you decide to go to, you're there, you're going to go all in the process. So to the best of your ability, trust yourself, meaning, okay, you chose this person, you've been led to this modality by some part of you, you were guided here, or you've had inspiration, or you've been excited. So everything led up to doing this. So really give it a good shot. Really trust yourself. Really be open. Really trust your practitioner. Really trust this actual process. And trust is absolutely the key ingredient in this whole thing, because I have noticed that besides for expectations, during a session, doubts can really slow down. I used to say, I still do say it sometimes, the 3 Ds that can really disrupt a session are doubts, distractions, and disappointment. And this has held true for years since I started this. So doubts are very important not to have in this process. And I'm not saying don't have discernment, because discernment is very good. You want to be discerning. You want to be discerning over the material that comes up. You want to be discerning on what's coming through. I know a lot of us, we may struggle to trust ourselves in certain ways. So we have a session like this and it's a really powerful experience, but then afterwards we may be like, well, can I really trust that this was real? And so you want to be discerning. I always advise my clients to be discerning. That's a good thing. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to do it during the session, because during the session, it's just going to slow you down. And since this is a service, since time is money in this world, meaning that your time is valuable, my time and the practitioner's time is valuable, it's costing some sort of energy, and typically that's money, so you're having to pay, and the practitioner's receiving money for their time. So everyone's invested into you, the client, getting as much value as you can from this process. And the way that you're going to get as much value as you can is if you trust the process and you trust yourself. Because if you don't allow yourself to actually move through the experience, then you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot, as the saying goes, because you're not actually allowing yourself to have a good experience. So again, that's why I always advise my clients, hey, it's good to have discernment, but wait till the end. I'm going to send you the recording. I do a transcript for everyone, so you can go through that and sit with it. And for me personally, I'll even do an integration call with my clients where I'll hop on a call with them and help them process the information. And that's a great time to start analyzing it and discerning certain things. And that's fun, because then we can talk through it. And to me, that's part of the magic of the process, is actually this integration between your subconscious and your conscious mind. And I wouldn't actually want to take that from anyone. I was the most skeptical person when I first started this. I could never imagine myself before, in the past, getting into hypnosis, getting into hypnotherapy. It was the furthest thing from my radar. But then I found, oh, this is actually the most effective way to help someone holistically heal. And it came to me. And so I kind of was almost like, well, this hypnotherapy chose me. I didn't necessarily chose it. And QHHT and quantum healing specifically chose me. And so I've come to learn how effective this is, but I had to go through so many layers of skepticism to get here, and I wouldn't change a thing. Whenever I could look back, I wouldn't change a thing, because I needed to have the mind that I did to go through the process that I did to get to where I am now, to be able to make a video like this where I can say, I understand what it's like, I relate. I was the most skeptical person. The first time I did a QHHT session, I was doubting the whole thing. And then I look back and I realized that the practitioner could have done a better job at explaining things to me and setting my expectations and understanding what things were going to be like. And so that's why I made it my mission to do a better job for my clients and to do a better job for all of you. That's why I created this YouTube channel. That's why I'm going to be posting a lot of content on this channel about this, because this is just what I feel is a way that I can help serve. So that's very important, trusting. And then, really to the best of your ability, just letting go. You could call it surrendering, but I know we feel a little, we may not be sure how we feel about letting go. But the one thing I want to say about this is that you're not letting go to anything outside of yourself. It's not like you're giving up control to the practitioner. That's very important to clarify here. Because what you're doing is you're connecting with your soul, with your true self, with your higher self. So you're giving up a little bit of control to a greater part of you. Think of it as like there's a small us, there's a little you with a little y, and then there's the big you with a big Y. And what we're doing is little us, little you, this you, is giving up a little bit of control to the big you. And it might feel scary because you might feel like, oh, I'm going to lose control, or I'm not going to be as much in control, but it's an illusion. It's not even real, because the big version of you is more empowered, has more power, has more control. So as you give that up a little bit and you integrate this greater part of you, then you're more knowing, you're more healed, you're more clear, and you feel more empowered over your life. Most of us, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't even be seeking this form of therapy or hypnosis or anything if we didn't feel like we were out of control. So this isn't something that's supposed to take your power away and give you less control. This is actually giving you your power back. That's why you're doing it, because you're reclaiming your power. You're stepping into a greater power, but we may need to have a feeling like we're letting go a little bit to let go and surrender to this more great, beautiful, powerful part of us to come in. And now we're embodying more of the energy of who we're actually meant to show up in the world as. And so it's actually a really beautiful process. So some other practical advice is get a good night's sleep. You just want to be as well rested as you can, just so you can come in clear-minded. Try to come in to the session in a relaxed state. So I usually recommend my clients to take the day off of work, or maybe we do the session in the afternoon so you can get some work done and you could come in just with a clear mind, because what you don't want is you don't want to be stressed out. You don't want to be in a state where your heart rate is elevated, where you've got so many things on your mind and you can't focus and you can't relax. Because again, we want to provide you as much value as possible. I want you to get as much value from this experience as possible. And so that means I want you to show up in a good state. Otherwise, why even do it at that time? Why not wait if you're going to get more value? And maybe we just don't know. But yeah, just know that anything that's going to stimulate you, that's going to stress you out, that's going to increase your heart rate, that's going to make your mind start ruminating on things is not going to be the best for this process. I even recommend staying away from coffee if you can, because coffee tends to wire us. Some medications may wire us too. So if it's possible for you to take that later in the day, or take that earlier in the day away from your session, that can be good too, because sometimes that may affect the session. So you just want to be very mindful about these things. And you also want to make sure that you eat something, because these sessions are 4+ hours long. And if you don't eat anything, you can become a little hungry, and that can be a distraction. You want to make sure you're hydrated, but sometimes you might not want to drink too much water. Otherwise, you may have to go to the bathroom a lot in the session. And while that doesn't mess up the session, it can just create a little bit of kind of a starting and stopping type of thing, where then you have to go back into it and everything. But I always say, it's okay if you have to use the bathroom during the session. It's much better to go than to hold it in, because if you do have to go and you hold it in, it's going to be a distraction. And that distraction will take you out of it. Again, think about the 3 Ds: doubts, disappointments, distractions, what you don't want in a session, what will hinder the session. Another big thing in QHHT is actually crafting your list of questions. And this is important because we want to make sure that you can get everything that you can possibly get out of the session. Dolores Cannon recommends having a list of questions that you would want to ask. For me, and what a lot of other practitioners do as well, we actually have an intake form. So I'll have a form that you would fill out that helps you become even more intentional around the process. And this form has an opportunity for you to put any questions that you have in it. But depending on what your practitioner has, either way, you could write down a list of questions on your phone or in a journal and bring that to the session. And that will help the practitioner make sure that they can ask those questions when you get to that point in the session. So again, these are questions like, what is my purpose? What does this event mean? Why did this happen? What does this relationship mean in my life? Did we know each other before? What was this supposed to teach me? And anything like that. One thing that I would recommend if you do this is actually sorting the questions into categories. This makes it easier for the practitioner so that we can stay on a similar thread whenever it gets to those types of questions. So health questions, relationship questions, career questions, finance questions, life purpose questions, anything. Just if you can sort those, that actually helps the practitioner a lot, because again, it just creates a little bit more of a flow rather than having to jump around between a lot of different things. And so the way that works is when it comes time for that part of the session, the practitioner themselves will actually be communicating with you and with your subconscious and asking those questions. And it's important to recognize at this time in the session, you're going to be channeling in a sense. So you're going to be channeling these answers from your higher self or from your soul, from your SC. And so depending on how involved your conscious mind is, again, think of the conscious mind as a filter, that's going to make you feel as if you may be making it up or not. The deeper in trance you are, the more clear the answers are going to be. The less you is going to be involved, the less little you will be involved, and big you will be coming through. But just trust the process, and whatever level of trance that you're in, if you're in a lighter state where you're kind of thinking that you're making it up, just go with it still, because again, doubts really slow the process down. What makes the process go well is trust. So even if you're not sure, just trust yourself, and you can always go back and discern later. And of course, if you're very deep in trance, then the answers are going to be coming in crystal clear without your involvement at all. And that's honestly the best place to be. And again, just sometimes know that can take multiple sessions. It's honestly, from my experience, more likely that somebody's going to be in a very deep state of trance in their second session, because in the first session, there may be more fear and uncertainty and doubt around the process, around themselves, maybe around me, even as the practitioner in certain cases. And that's all going to be gone by the second session. So the second session, it's almost like the runway is completely clear for us to go straight where we need to go. So just know, if you're watching this and you've done a session before, or if you're about to do a session and you're not sure, you can ask your practitioner about potentially doing multiple sessions. You can reference this video. You can tell them about this, because likely they may have experienced this as well. Just knowing that everyone tends to go deeper as time goes on. And if you didn't get there exactly where you want it to be, it doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't mean that you won't. It just means that you need more time. I have found that this hypnosis, QHHT, this process, trance states are a skill. They're a skill that can be developed, and it's something that gets better with time. So the more that you do it, the more familiar you get, the more comfortable you get, the more safe you feel with the process. You just get better at it, and it's something that always picks up where it leaves off. You're never really going backwards. So you're always really moving forward. You're always really just getting better. It's just like a skill, like anything. Like once you it's like learning a new language. It really is. This is the closest thing. It's like learning a language of the subconscious, learning a language of spirit, of however you want to call this. And the more that you know the language, you can just go and speak that language really clearly. But when you're just learning the language, like in the first session, there's going to be more doubts around the process. It's not going to be as clear. Think of it as like an interpreter. If an interpreter is brand new and doesn't really know the language that well, they're not going to be able to interpret. The message may be coming through the same from the person speaking that language, but if that interpreter is not the best at understanding the language, you're only going to get a fraction of the message. Versus if you work with an interpreter who is very fluent in the language, who can just have it coming through clear, then it's the same message coming through, but it's coming through clear with one person. It's just that in this process, you are the interpreter, and your own skill level determines how clear that message is going to come through. So if it doesn't come through as clear, just don't worry that it was the session, that it was the practitioner of anything. More likely that it might just be you needing more time and more comfort and more safety and more familiarity with this process to get to that point. So next thing I want to bring up is, again, just kind of highlighting that QHHT can only be done in person if they want to call it official, because these are the official rules and guidelines by the organization. Most practitioners, even ones that are level 3 with QHHT, are still practicing online, but they're just calling it something else. So they're calling it Quantum Healing Hypnosis or BQH or Quantum Hypnosis or whatever they're calling it. They can adapt QHHT to be done online. It's just that they can't call it QHHT. I say this just because if there is somebody that you really, really want to work with and they do live in a different state or country or halfway around the world, don't be discouraged. You can still work with them. You just have to kind of know that it's going to be adapted a little bit, but it's not really going to be much different from you having the experience in person. And there are some considerations when doing an online session in general, but I'm not really going to go into too much of that in this video because this video is more QHHT based. I'll talk about that in other videos, and you can check out other videos on my channel if you're interested in that. But just know that if you want to do QHHT, it is in person. You can look up. I encourage you to look on Google, look on Maps, look wherever you look things up, AI even these days, and search QHHT practitioners near me, and you can find someone that's near you. But when you look for someone, do your research and just make sure that they're experienced, or sometimes they're just starting out and they may be giving sessions away for free. I know whenever you're just starting out in QHHT, to actually get the certification, you can give away free sessions, which is great, but sometimes it can be a double-edged sword in the sense that if the practitioner isn't experienced and they're doing it for practice, you may not get the experience that you could possibly get with an experienced practitioner. And you may think that it has to do with the QHHT or that it has to do with the actual modality or yourself, when the reality is that that may actually have to do with the practitioner, because the practitioner may not be as experienced yet. And it doesn't have anything to do with the modality itself, because it's also coming through a new practitioner. So just something to be aware of if you are working with a new practitioner. And that's another reason why working with a more experienced practitioner is better, and I'll talk about that a little later about the directory, but there is a QHHT online directory where you can go and look up in your city, and I'll link that down below, and you can look up the different levels of everyone, and you can find someone who you really resonate with. Besides for their level, I would say the number one most important thing is just them, their energy. Go to their website, read how they're talking, see if they've made videos, see their reviews, just connect with them energetically. Trust your intuition and go with who you feel you resonate with the most. And number one thing, just trust your intuition, because skill is important, experience is important, but what's also very important is your connection and how you feel. So always trust that. So what I want to go over just briefly was Dolores Cannon's reasoning at the time that she was alive for why QHHT was supposed to be done online. And I'm going to also put my commentary on this as well. So number one was safety. So she felt that in case there was a strong emotional release or strong emotions, that being in physical presence was important. Now, I've also recognized that nobody's ever getting too much. So even if you do this online, I've found that even if you have a strong emotional release and the practitioner isn't present, it's still okay. They're still with you. There is still considerations to be aware of, because you want to make sure you have a strong connection, Wi-Fi. You want to make sure that the electricity is there, that's not going to go out. So if you're doing it on a phone, that it's not going to die, things like that. But assuming all of that's there, I have found that your higher self, your soul, really isn't going to give you anything more than you can handle. But at that time, Dolores Cannon really felt that safety was very important. And so that's one of the reasons that she recommended doing it in person. Again, for me, I work with a lot of I work with a lot of clients online. Most practitioners work with a lot of clients online. I haven't talked to anyone that's experienced anyone having a negative reaction. And so for me, I find that online can many times even work better than in person, just because you're in your own space. And in your own space, you can oftentimes go deeper because you're more comfortable. Another reason is the environment. And this kind of comes down to technical glitches, different distractions. So if you live with roommates or a spouse or animals or anything, children, these can become distractions. So you just need to make sure that you would find the time to do that. So she would recommend that because you're in a controlled environment and in someone's office. And this is my office here. I keep it very safe. I keep it very sacred. Safe as in it's in a safe part of town. It's in a really nice building, in a really good location. And I, just decorate it to look really calming, and just have very sacred intentions around it. So I really enjoy working with clients here in the Austin, Texas area. But that being said, I also have a little checklist that I can give clients when they do sessions online to help them create a sacred space and just make sure that they have set it up the right way. So again, in a perfect world, yeah, you would find a great practitioner who you really resonate with, who has an in-person office and everything like that. But even if you have to do it online, don't be discouraged, because you can have a great session, and you may just have to collaborate a little bit with your practitioner to make that work for you. At Dolores Cannon's time, she may have mentioned that sometimes there may be a sense of touching the person, or this may also be in just general hypnotherapy. Some people may prefer to put a hand on the shoulder or a head or something like that. For me, I don't really touch my clients. I don't really find that to be necessary, but for some of us who may want that, then in person can be a preferred choice and things like that. But for me, I don't do anything like that. I don't find it to be necessary. So these are just some of the reasons why in person may be preferred, or why Dolores Cannon may have been recommending these back in her day. All right, so now it's time to go over the session and just going through a step-by-step walkthrough. So there are 4 parts of a QHHT session, and this is just what to expect on the day of your session. So number 1, there's the interview process. And actually, I should say, even before this, most practitioners will do a consultation, meaning that you can actually talk to them on the phone, or even come in person or on Zoom and get to meet them and talk to them before you actually start this on the day. So usually before, you're actually getting a chance to connect with them and feel into their energy and see if you resonate with them and connect with them before starting. But on the actual day, this isn't a QHHT session, they do what's called the interview. And this is essentially a, give or take 2 hour, it could be 1 to 2 hours, something like that, process where we actually understand more about your life, more about your story, more about the important people in your life and what's got you here today. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. I would say the number 1 reason is that it just allows you to open up and be vulnerable and share more about what's coming up and what's going on, which help us lead into having an even better session. Because if you're already being open, if you're already being vulnerable, if you're already sharing, well, that's already done. You don't have to worry about jumping right into the session and then having to kind of get to that point. You're already doing that, and you already are building that trust and rapport with your practitioner and vice versa, so that you feel more comfortable to actually start going into these deeper places potentially. And hypnotherapy in general is a more open and vulnerable space. So it's really important that you do have a sense of trust, and that as much of that rapport can be built. In a perfect world, the practitioner, you would be best friends. You would already know them, feel so comfortable, feel so safe with them, that wouldn't be a barrier at all. But the reality is that most likely you're just getting to know this person, but yet paradoxically you're needing to go super, super deep and be open and vulnerable. And it's not really maybe realistic that you would just do that really easily without getting to know someone first and having an introduction and having the person feel like they understand you deeply. So this is the opportunity to do that. And that's why it's so important, and why Dolores Cannon recommended it. The next part is the hypnosis part of the session. This is actually the journey. So it starts off with an induction, and induction just means this is kind of like you getting to the deep end of the pool, but you got to go step by step. So the induction is kind of a way for you to go dip your toes in the water and start to go step by step before you start getting to the deeper part. So there's a process to it that I won't really go too much into, but it starts with just going through a peaceful, beautiful place in your mind. So it's just a part that it's just a place in your mind that you're creating. So all of this is just really meant to help you feel calm and at ease and be able to just gradually go into the process. There's also a part of it that has to do with, a light of protection going around you and kind of different things like that will gradually help you really induce yourself and guide yourself into this space. And then after that, the process of the journey then goes into what's generally going to be a past life or some sort of a journey. And again, you don't need to believe in past lives for this to work. You could look at things as a metaphor. You could look at it as just like you're making it up. Either way, it's going to be most likely bringing up emotions. It's most likely going to be bringing messages to you around your current situation. So just trust yourself. You'll go through the process just fine. And then after that, then you're going to go to more of the subconscious part, more of the understanding the reason that the journey was shown, asking your questions before wrapping up and coming out of it. So those are what happens during the session. And then generally, now every practitioner may be a little different, but what comes next usually can be a debrief, meaning that you'll spend some time debriefing what happened. For me personally, I usually wait to do the debrief till after I do an integration call with my clients, just because I have personally found that sometimes it's so much that it's hard to really unpack everything right then and there. But a lot of practitioners they will start to unpack things right then and there and do a little bit of a debrief, and that can be helpful too, just so you kind of can orient yourself a little bit and kind of crystallize in some of what came through before you're then sent off on your way. And that's pretty much it. And then the fourth is really the integration part. So again, for me, the debriefing comes with that. And by integration, it's more that the session will be recorded for you. And so then you can go through and you can listen to it and journal over it and be able to really process the insights. Because again, I look at these sessions as they're gifts that keep on giving. I look back at the sessions that I've done years later. I'm still revisiting the first session I've done years ago. And it's been years. And so these sessions, there's something that you can get from them no matter what time of your life that you go back and revisit it. And Dolores Cannon even says that the subconscious had mentioned to her that there's more healing that happens every time you go through it. Every time that you go through it, more things sink in. And I believe it was Jung that had mentioned that part of the healing process is actually bringing subconscious material to conscious awareness. And that's exactly what goes on when you revisit, is keep in mind that in the session, you're exploring your subconscious. But when you're outside of the session, you're in your conscious mind. So the more that you can integrate that material, the more that you can embody it, and the quicker that the changes happen. So those are sort of the 4 parts. And the session itself is, generally speaking, 4+ hours long. It's different for everyone. So some it's 4, some it's 4 to 5, some it's 4 to 6, 5 to 6, some it's 7, sometimes it can be more than that. So you just want to look at your practitioner who you're interested in and see what length. And there's no right or wrong, because everyone's different, and some of us structure it a certain way for various reasons. So the length of time really isn't that important. And practitioners like me usually will give a range. Like for me, I usually give 4 to 5. I generally say it's going to be 4 hours, upwards of 5 hours sometimes, and occasionally it can go to 6. For me, I never see it really going above 6, but that's for my specific style. I'm sure practitioners, I know that there are many that are out there that go 7 and maybe even more, which is for me a lot. Personally, in my practice, I've experienced that anything above 6 can really feel like a lot. So I found for me like 4 to be the sweet spot, and maybe sometimes a little longer, but that's just me. So I mentioned this a little bit, but the next part, the interview, why it takes 2 hours. Again, the number one most important thing is the healing is actually already beginning the moment that the interview starts. And I see this time and time again, that when you start opening up, you'll be surprised. You'll already be tuning into your emotions, and you'll already start to feel emotions coming up. I've really experienced an interesting phenomenon where you could have multiple sessions and you could tell the same story, your same life story or backstory to multiple practitioners, because I've done this myself, because as a practitioner myself, I go and get my own sessions from other practitioners. And I've noticed that when I do this, I'll tell the same story, but my story will end up going in different directions. There'll be certain things that I'll be focused on with this person, certain things that I'll be focused on with this person. So this isn't something that you may be fully aware of, but certain themes will already start coming up when you're telling your story that will kind of hint at maybe what needs to be worked on in the session. So I find that very interesting as sort of it shows that healing is already starting, the process is already starting from the moment that you actually start bringing this stuff up. And if you start to feel emotions, if you start to just feel certain things, that's a really good sign, because that means that these emotions, these things that we're working through are coming up to the surface because they're ready to be let go. They're ready to be cleared and healed and released. And so if you feel things coming up, that's a really good sign. And just take it as that it's coming up because it's ready to be released. And again, very important, because this whole process works only if you feel comfortable and safe, only if you have trust. And that can only be done with time. There's no way to manufacture that. There's no way to circumvent that. If you just don't know someone, if you're just meeting them for the first time, you're not going to trust them fully. You don't know this person. So the more time you have with someone, the more comfortable you're going to feel, and the more you're going to feel ready to work with them. And so if you have a consultation before, that's wonderful. So you're not coming in with nothing. But if not, or even if you are, it's still very important to spend as much time. So that's why, again, 1 to 2 hours, and oftentimes Dolores Cannon would recommend 2 full hours of the actual interview before any of the session starts, the hypnosis part of the session. And, the practitioner is going to ask usually different questions, like who are the important people in your life. And Dolores Cannon would actually give some suggestions on everything that the practitioner should be asking, different important events that may have happened in your life, and different things to really get a sense of what's going on. And all mainly for the purpose of just making sure that you get the most value that you can by asking the right questions to your subconscious. So then after that is the regression. And this is when we're exploring past lives or memories, or it could even seem like a metaphor, or it could just seem a journey, like you're just making up a story in your mind to understand more deeply the root cause of what's going on. So your higher self, your subconscious, the SC, is always the one who is working with you to show you what's coming up. And I kind of think of it like all roads lead to Rome. No matter what you think about, your subconscious, your higher self will use that as a bridge. So don't worry about getting it right, about getting anything wrong. Anything that you come up with can be used as a way to get you to the next thing, to where you should be. So no matter what you say, no matter what you come up with, it's all going to get you to where you're supposed to go. So I know in the very beginning, when you're in a light level of trance, it may be easier to doubt what's coming through. But again, just play along, just trust the process, trust yourself, and whatever comes, go with that. And even if it was something that you were just making up in the beginning, like it was a product of your conscious mind, which I don't believe that it is, but even let's say it was, your subconscious will still take that and get it to where it needs to be anyway. So don't even worry about it. Just go with whatever is coming up for you. And your subconscious will continue to guide you to the best places to see and the best things to help you on your journey. So just trust 100% as much as you can, and you'll be fine. You'll get where you need to go. And oftentimes the questions that you have on your list, or whatever you're coming in for, whatever your core intention is what is focused on, or what is being addressed in the journey itself. But let's say that you have a bunch of different questions on different topics. It's more likely that your subconscious, you're going to go through a journey that's going to address one of them. So let's say your most important intention is life purpose, but you have a lot of questions that range from relationships and finances and career and all sorts of stuff. Well, that can be addressed in the questions, but it may be more likely that your journey is actually going to be focused around understanding more about your purpose. That's not always true, though. That's not always the case, because it could also be anything. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes you could be wanting to know your purpose, but what's actually more important is for you to work on XYZ going on in your life, and your higher self or your subconscious is like, yes, this is important, but she or he actually needs to work on this, so we're gonna focus on this. So again, the key really is just to trust the process and just know that it isn't always obvious or logical why these things are coming up and why we're working on it or why we're visiting this, but it usually, from my experience, 99% of the time always comes back around and is very clear at the end. And in the 0.01% amount of times when it's not, then that's still for a reason of why that was shown, even if it's not made sense. And once you get to the point where you can ask the questions, then you can get more clarity on why that was shown, even though that didn't really make as much sense, because usually our subconscious can be very creative in why they're showing us certain things. And that's why it's important to get clarity on that, because if we don't get clarity, then we may not know. But if we can get clarity, then it all can make sense. So the last part, connecting with the subconscious, getting your questions answered, this is the climax of the session. So this is when we go through a process of actually inviting you to speak directly with your subconscious or your higher self. And there's various ways that can be done, but the number one thing is just to trust this part. This is the number one part that people have the most trouble trusting, because there's so many fears or uncertainties or doubts around this process, because and expectations. We expect it to be something that's coming through crystal clear, like we're channeling, just vocal channeling our higher self completely. And yes, that does happen, and it's not uncommon, but it is maybe a little uncommon for you if you're just starting out, if your conscious mind is more present. So oftentimes it's somewhere in the middle. You're getting inspiration, you're getting intuition, you're getting thoughts, and it's coming through, but it's still filtering through your conscious mind. And if your conscious mind's doubting, then the process isn't going to go as smooth. So if you trust the process, it may not be perfect, it may not be the way that you envisioned it, but it's still going to be coming through. And remember, hypnosis, all of this is a skill. So just because it doesn't come through crystal clear the first time doesn't mean you can do it again and it wouldn't the second time, or that you would become more familiar with the process and be able to surrender better, or let it come through better. So all I recommend here is just do the best that you can. Just do the best that you can. Have no expectations. Trust yourself, and just know that your questions will be answered. And just go back to that example of the interpreter that I said earlier, where you are the interpreter for these messages. So the better the interpreter is, the more clear the messages are going to be. So if you're just doing this for the first time, it's not even really reasonable or realistic to expect that you're going to be speaking this language 100% and fluently yet. There is a process of learning. So be patient with yourself as well. Also, what can happen in a session is that there can be a body scan or miraculous spontaneous healing or profound healing that can happen. Now, body scans can be done, and this is an even deeper part of the process where it also requires trust, where your higher self can scan your body and anywhere that they can send healing energy to, or do energy work or upgrades or anything like that can be done as well. And of course, if there's any physical healing or there's any healing that you want to be done, that can be done here too. Just know that sometimes generally this is working on an energetic level. So, this is a tricky place, because it's all about expectations. If we expect that these miraculous things are going to be done, then sometimes we're setting ourselves up for disappointment when they aren't done, and we can think that the session was a failure because it wasn't being done, when we can't even begin to fathom the levels on which we're working with this energy on. And energy work that's happening may take some time to trickle down and manifest. So it may actually be that the work has been done on these levels but that on the physical level, it may not be done yet. So if you do have a session and you do get yes that this work was done, that is something that you can trust. You just got to keep going with the process and just knowing that it may take some time. It doesn't always come through to where that happens in the session. Of course, sometimes it does. Sometimes you do get miraculous healings in the session. If you have had that, definitely leave a comment down below because I'm curious to learn more about how that was for you. I know some of my clients have had this as well. It's always really amazing when it does happen, but it's not the norm. So I always want to preface with my clients by saying that, just because, again, for me, it's really important to set those expectations so that every client, and you know that this process is successful, that it is working. It's just sometimes it may not be working exactly the way that we think. But the energy work, the body scans can definitely be very powerful. And I would say most of us can really recognize the work that it's doing. The number one thing that I get immediately after the session is, wow, I feel so much lighter. I feel like I let something go. I feel more myself. I feel more healed, more integrated, more whole. And so that shows that something is happening. We're really feeling that on an energetic level. Okay, so next thing, integration and the power of your recording. So this is so important. I mean, it's important to have a good session. It's important to have a session and to go through an experience. But if you don't do anything with that, then you're missing out on the full possible value in maximizing all the benefits that you could be getting. The number one thing that I hear from clients and people that there's no follow through is, what am I supposed to do with this information? Okay, this is an amazing experience and it was really powerful, but now what? Now what do I do? And for me in my practice, that's why I also focus on doing integration calls and follow-up work, and even connecting with the subconscious and the higher self to ask for direct next steps. So for me, I'm very experienced with this, and I work with clients every single day, and so I've got a format and formula and system that I do so that I can get those answers with my client's higher self to then be able to put a plan in place for how to maximize the benefits. But the post-session integration is so important. And what I'm personally also doing is I'm creating an online community that's going to be an integration-based community, because yeah, the sessions are amazing, hands down. But if you're not fully maximizing all the benefits, it turns it from something that was a great experience that you did one time versus something that was really profound and transformative and life-changing. And that really, honestly, is somewhat on you, the client, and it's somewhat on the practitioners and you, the practitioners who may be watching this video too, because as practitioners, we need to set our clients up for success. We can't necessarily expect them to be doing the work. And as a client, I also want to say that you can't expect your practitioner to do the work for you. You've got to be the one to really do the work. Ultimately, you are responsible. And the practitioner is not responsible for your own healing, especially what comes after. That's all you. The practitioner, yes, they can do things to set you up for success. And if they're not doing anything after, there's probably more they could be doing. But at the same time, it's not really their responsibility. They're responsible for the session. Anything else is a bonus, but you're responsible for really maximizing the benefits. And the healing doesn't just stop when you leave. It continues. And so what I typically recommend on the day is do self-care during the day after your session. Treat yourself to a nice meal, get a good night's sleep, get some rest, journal, anything that you can do to kind of sit with everything and integrate, because usually it's a lot and it's very powerful. In the next week following the session, it usually can take up to a week for me or the practitioner to send you the recording and the materials that come with it. And so whenever those come, I recommend, going back through it again, journaling over it. I know some of us, each of us are different. Some of us are really quick to unpack things. Some of us want to sit with things for a little bit. Some of us want to sit with things for a long time, or maybe we don't ever unpack it, but we're really doing ourselves a disservice if we don't, because it is very important to go through that material and really be able to set plans and goals for how you can make the most of it. And yeah, and really creating action items around things is very important too, making these things actionable. So I do all this for my clients. Like, this is something that I really care about going over and above. I put together action items, a list of next steps, things that we can follow up on and everything. That's just me personally, but for you as a client, this is something that you can do for yourself as well. You can even use AI tools. This is just a good idea. You can plug your session into AI tools. Ask the AI to give you some action items and things like that. There's a lot of things that you can creatively do with your session material. You can even have your AI help you process it. This is what I do with my clients, but that's something that you can take your full responsibility of and actually work with AI, especially those of you who are familiar with it. And plug that into AI and see what AI can come up with to help you, because it really is a gift that keeps on giving. And if you take it seriously, this is one of the best things that you could possibly do for yourself, because you're really doing a lot of inner work, and it's very, very powerful. And the sky's the limit for what you can get from this process. So Dolores Cannon did say that the recording actually has healing in it. So there's a lot of power in this recording, and why it's very important to listen to it, again, is just because this is where you can integrate. This is where you can keep in mind that during the session itself, you're in the subconscious, you're exploring your subconscious. You're not consciously processing this. You may be consciously processing it a tiny bit because your conscious mind is somewhat involved, but you're not fully consciously processing it. So you're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't process it from a conscious level, and you're really performing a really great service for yourself if you can process this material consciously by going through it, journaling over it, making connections on certain things. And so really, I just want to emphasize that whether you listen to the recording, for me, I provide a transcript. You could go through a transcript. I'm also providing a summary and an outline for my clients, and my clients can go through that. But really, even if it's just a recording, go through that recording if you can. Or if you're lucky enough and fortunate enough to get a transcript, go through that transcript, because that's going to help you so much. Just be able to process things. And you are most likely going to be processing things that you may not have remembered the first time around. You'd really be surprised. You may think that you remember everything, but then you go back and revisit it and you're like, wow, I do not remember that came through. And it may be almost as if it's a whole nother experience going through the second time, because there may be a lot of things that you missed that you'll be really surprised to be recognizing. And that's actually a really good sign if that happens, because that means that your conscious mind was out of the way and that you were having more of a experience in your subconscious. I always ask my clients after the session ends, how long did they feel like the session was? Because if they say whatever time and it was half, so let's say it was a 4-hour session, they were like, oh, I felt like that was 2 hours, then I can say, okay, well, their conscious mind was about 50% out of the way. If they say, well, that felt like it was 20 minutes, I'm like, whoa, their conscious mind was way out of the way, because this was like a 4 or 5 hour session that they thought was 20 minutes. So that's kind of a little hint of how you can see how long the session actually feels like it is to you is a good indication of how involved your conscious mind is. So realistically, what to expect after the session is that you can feel a lot lighter, some level of being lighter. Even if it's just a little bit, you feel a little lighter. Your patterns are starting to change. You're starting to recognize certain things. You're starting to recognize certain patterns. You're starting to feel energized, or maybe you might feel tired because you might feel like you did a lot of work. Sometimes if we're pulling up a lot of layers, you might feel even more anxious or even more emotional or raw in the beginning, but usually that subsides with time. Sometimes because these things are coming up and we haven't addressed them for a while, potentially, you may be feeling just more emotional or kind of a little heightened, but then as a few days go by, things start to settle and you start to feel better. Oftentimes you just feel like you have a lot more clarity, like you have a lot more control, a lot more empowered over your situation and feeling more connected. And again, it's really important to keep up with everything, with doing your own work outside of these sessions, because you want to make sure to build on that and keep maintaining that and grow that versus going right back to your old patterns. And practitioners like me, I mean, I certainly, help my clients with this, and that's why I like to work with people over time, because that way it gives more follow through, and it can just be more beneficial to actually work with someone over a greater time horizon, because then you're able to make even more progress to get to your goals, and there's more accountability as well. Everyone's different, but it is important to recognize that you can be looking at this in one of two ways. You can be looking at this as a one-time experience, or you can be looking at this as a way to really do inner work faster and really grow, whether it would be healing or just working more towards enlightenment or connecting with your soul. And this process is just like building a relationship, like anything else. Like if you just are working with your practitioner once, or building, or your soul or your higher self, your subconscious once, that relationship is not going to be as developed as it could be as if you keep showing up. Imagine showing up on meetings once every 2 weeks, or once a month, or even once a quarter, once every few months. That relationship is going to keep developing, and that's going to keep strengthening, and it can just keep building on itself. So yeah, just something to consider, something to consider, this possibility that this can be an ongoing journey that keeps developing with time, that gets more rewarding with time, rather than just a one and done type of thing. So the last thing I want to go over is how to find a practitioner. Actually, right before I go through that, I want to talk about a couple FAQs here. So the biggest FAQ is, what if this doesn't work for me? What if this just is, I'm just going to be the person that it's not going to work for? And I'll say it works for everyone, again, because everyone can access an altered state. It's just part of life. It's what we do every single day when we're relaxing or whenever we dream. So everyone can do this. If anyone has any issues, it's only because, number one, you may struggle to relax. So it is important to feel comfortable with the process. Sometimes people might struggle to relax, or you might struggle to relax if you are nervous about letting go, but just know that you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do, and it works at your own pace. So it will really go at your own pace. So just trusting the process, allowing yourself to feel comfortable and gradually feel safer with time, that's going to allow you to tap into those spaces, and getting out of this idea of expectations, and just knowing that the process does work. It works for so many people. For me, it works every time, and for my clients, I'm telling you, it works every single time. Every single client has success, and various levels of success. Some people hit a home run, hit a grand slam out of the park. Some people just hit a single base, but either way, to me, it's a success, because they're getting farther every single time. So you just want to be reasonable about what you can expect for yourself, but just know the process does work, and it will work for you, as long as you just can trust yourself and choose a good practitioner who you really resonate with, and who has a good track record, things like this. Another FAQ is, what if the subconscious doesn't come through for my session? Well, the subconscious is always coming through. Your higher self is always present. It's always there. So if it doesn't come through, it doesn't mean that it's not coming through. It just means that you didn't reach a level of trance necessary to have the answers coming as clearly as you wanted, or maybe you let your own personal doubts and expectations get in the way. So the number one thing is just, again, trust yourself during this process. Just really trust yourself, and just knowing whatever you're receiving is exactly what it should be. The only thing that really gets in the way is the conscious analytical mind. And that can be normal, because a lot of us have that built up very, very highly. But that's why I say hypnosis and setting aside the conscious mind is a skill. The better we get at it, it's something that can be very rewarding for us in our life. So just know that, like anything, this is something that you can absolutely develop. Number 3, last FAQ, is how can I maximize the benefits and make this as effective as I can? And that will be with everything that is outside of the session. So in the session, it's trust. Trust the process, trust yourself. But besides that, it's everything that you do before, Are you showing up in a relaxed state? Are you being very intentional around the process? Did you bring questions? Did you come in with an open mind and no expectations? Are you coming in clear, as clear and relaxed as you possibly can? After, are you doing everything that you can with what came through? Are you having a balanced perspective on what came through? Are you able to kind of act on this? So these are ways that you can maximize your session experience. Now I'll go through how to find a qualified practitioner. So there is the QHHT website, which I'll link down below. And this is a good way that you can actually find official practitioners who are listed in the directory, and you can search them by city or by a number of criteria. You can also search QHHT near me. This is a popular search term. QHHT therapist or past life therapist near me, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, Dolores Cannon near me. Just go to Google, go to AI tools, any type of AI platform, you can search that and it will begin to list people that are potentially going to be good practitioners for you to work with. And in QHHT, there's different levels. So there's level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 corresponds to the level 1 course. So anyone who is a practitioner will have gone through the level 1 training. That's what's required to be a level 1 practitioner. There are level 1 interns, meaning that they haven't done the number of sessions required to become level 1 yet, and they are actually giving away free sessions. You can do this, just again, it's important to advise that they are inexperienced, they are doing it for practice, that's why you're getting it for free, so even more so, you don't want to have too much expectations, and if something didn't work the way that you thought, it's more likely that it may be due to the practitioner than it is the actual modality, or maybe even you. Level 2, there's a level 2, it's a little more advanced, and then level 3 is a lot more advanced because there's a lot more scrutiny over that process. The level 3 practitioners have to redo that every single year. They have to meet a certain level of submitting sessions to keep that. For me personally, I am a level 2, and I may get a level 3 in the future, but the reality is that I work a lot online, and I'm working with clients not only doing QHHT, I do a lot of hypnotherapy and my own holistic hypnotherapy, and I do a lot of past life regression, life between lives, and a lot of just like quantum healing in general, that using hypnosis. So QHHT is one of the tools in my tool belt. But if you want to find QHHT level 3, that's great. Just know that they may be more specialized in only QHHT, which may be a good thing for you. I will say that when you're looking for a practitioner, again, you want to look at reviews. A suggestion is look for the results, because you want to find practitioners who are really great at delivering results. People can have good experiences, but are they really having good results? That would just go even further and be icing on the cake. So you can look at the reviews and kind of check to see, hey, are people talking about the results? And also just checking to see how you connect with them and how you resonate with them. That's extremely important. Is QHHT right for you? And I'll end here. So for me, how I would determine if QHHT is right for someone is, generally speaking, are you open spiritually? Are you open-minded? Are you curious? Are you interested in your life purpose? Or does something like soul mission or soul path or even karma, soulmates, any of these topics resonate with you? Do you feel a higher purpose? Do you feel more like you're on a spiritual healing path, healing trauma? Do you feel a greater calling? Do you feel more pulled towards enlightenment or awakening, things like this? Do you read Dolores Cannon's books, Brian Weiss, Michael Newton, some of these things? If you're a more spiritual or more into holistic healing, QHHT is going to be great for you. If you're a little more skeptical of past lives, things like this, you probably wouldn't have watched this far in the video anyway, but QHHT may not be right for you if you're not as open to these concepts. That openness, that willingness, that fun, that play, when you have less fear around these concepts and more excitement around these concepts, it's going to work a lot better for you. And also the practitioner, make sure that you really resonate with them. When you really resonate with the practitioner and you feel really comfortable and really safe with them, if you can, you're going to have a wonderful experience. So if you're seeking answers to life's deepest questions, and even beyond that, to the deepest questions beyond just the idea of this life, QHHT is going to be right for you. If you're looking to get to the bottom of the root cause of what's going on, like you really want to just know the truth. If truth is important, if getting clarity is important, QHHT is going to be right for you. If you're really ready to face fears, face these certain emotional issues head on, and you're not afraid of them, and you're feeling really ready to do the real work necessary to move through things in your life, and you're ready to be a cycle breaker for generational issues, for generational trauma, for generational cycles and patterns, QHHT will be for you. If you're ready to connect with your higher self, and build your intuition, if you're ready to really build that confidence on a sense of identity. I often say, in terms of past lives, in terms of our soul's mission and purpose here, if we just know this experience, it's like having one chapter of the book, but you don't know the whole book. You don't have the context. And how can you be super, super confident and super empowered and feel that full connection if you're only building that on one? You can, it's possible, but it's not anything like being able to build a stronger foundation on your full sense of true identity, of knowing who you truly, truly are. So if you're ready to step into that, QHHT is going to be great for you. I'm glad I ended that on a coughing note there. Thank you so much for watching, for making it this far through this masterclass. And there's going to be a shorter version that I'm going to make right now as well, just kind of a 30-minute version of this. If you'd want to watch that for any reason, that will be linked below. Subscribe for more. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you'd like to join my community or our community of cycle breakers, we'd love to have you. And if you have any questions, if you want to share your experiences, if you want me to make any videos or just anything at all, leave those questions down below. I'd love to hear from you, whether you're a potential client, you've had sessions before, whether you're just curious or you're a practitioner. Let me know a little bit about who you are, and welcome.